Welcome to Soul Wellness with Kristen, where we get into the nitty-gritty of various holistic modalities and explore exactly how they help you heal. I'm your host, Kristen, and I invite you to join me on this enlightening expedition where we explore the connection between mind, body, and spirit. In each episode, we'll talk in depth with holistic providers, medical professionals, therapists, and healers. Our goal is to empower you with knowledge, inspire you with stories of resilience, and provide practical tools that you can integrate into your daily life. So, find a comfortable space and join us as we explore the multifaceted world of holistic wellness. Get ready to learn how to improve every aspect of your life and simply feel good. The adventure begins now. Thank you for joining us. Today I have AJ Vezendy with Mariella and Grace with me. He has been on this podcast before. He is a producer of some amazing olive oil, and he is back today to talk to us more about the health benefits of the Mediterranean diet and olive oil specifically. So welcome back, AJ.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. It's great to be back.
I'm so happy to have you back. Remind everybody about your business before we dive into the details.
Sure. We're a little bit unique. The way I describe Mariella and Grace is we're a farming collective located in and around my mother's hometown of Vieste in Italy. Vieste is in the region of Puglia on the Adriatic coast, and it's a little bit of a hidden region. So a few years back I decided to bring some of the products from producers in Vieste here to the United States because they never really had access to the American market before. And these were our family and friends working together, and it all seemed to fit. And 4 years later, here we are. Not only olive oil, but also now pasta and tomatoes.
That's awesome. It's a win-win for both sides. They want to have their products over here, and then we get to enjoy these amazing products that we usually don't have access to.
Yeah, the universe kind of put this all together. I'm very blessed that my mom and family were from this beautiful town. Like I said before, it's kind of a hidden gem in Italy. It just so happens that that's where she's from, and I'm American, as you can tell from my accent, your listeners, and it just fits together.
Yeah, that is so cool. Okay, so let's get into the health aspect. Talk about the Mediterranean diet a little bit, because it's such a popular diet and you hear it all the time.
Sure, yeah, the Mediterranean diet has been trending for quite some time, but it's kind of gaining a lot of traction more recently. You're starting to hear more about it in the news, social media. So olive oil plays a very big part in the Mediterranean diet. It's involved in just about everything that they cook in the region, and it plays a big part in the health aspects, in the benefits of the Mediterranean diet. I guess a few of the keys to the diet, it also incorporates their lifestyle as well. Many of the foods that they eat in the region are grown locally. Almost all the foods are grown locally. I know that's not always possible here in the United States, especially with olive oil, but that's one of the aspects, so it always reaches them very fresh. Another aspect is the climate of the Mediterranean in itself. It's not always a comfortable climate. There's some arid regions in the Mediterranean, and one of the health aspects of olive oil is it has a high, or at least a fresh extra virgin olive oil has a high polyphenol content, or high in antioxidants. And I kind of like to lead into that and tie it into the Mediterranean region. You know, an antioxidant is exactly what it sounds like. It prevents oxidation. Oxidation is kind of the breakdown of certain elements, like if you have a rusty pipe. Rust is a product of oxidation. And you can kind of equate that into your own body. You don't want your body to rust from the inside, so you need antioxidants to help prevent that. And olive oil, not only olive oil, but the olive tree produces antioxidants to help protect itself. So the olive trees, a lot of the times, are grown in a very stressful environment. And it seems that the higher the stress this tree sees, the more antioxidants it's producing. And you'll see that in different olive varieties. Some of the varieties have an average amount of polyphenols, but other varieties seem to have a higher amount of polyphenols. And a lot of times you can equate that to the environment that it's grown in. If it's a more stressful environment, more hot, less moisture, where it needs to protect itself, you'll see a higher polyphenol count in those olives. And that equates directly into the olive oil that we produce.
It is so wild to see an olive tree appearing to just grow out of rocks, or a tree that is 1,000 years old that has gone through so much and can still thrive. And it's incredible.
They're very resilient. We have some trees that are almost 2,000 years old on the property. It never ceases to amaze me as well.
The resilience, that is phenomenal.
Yeah, it really is. And when you look at food through a holistic lens, and from the seed all the way to the growing of the plant, it makes a lot more sense. How these products or how these foods really can help the human body. What's
a good polyphenol content? And then also talk to us about some brands, I guess, will advertise that they're really, really high in polyphenols, and that's a whole different ballgame.
Sure. In general, to be considered a high polyphenol content extra virgin olive oil, it should be around 250 milligrams per kilogram.
Okay.
So that's kind of your base or your starting point. But you will see olive oils in the marketplace with as high, even reaching the 1,000 milligram per kilogram level. Mm-hmm. And that depends on a few things. Like I said earlier, the variety of olive. Like we have a few different varieties. One is called Olearola, which has a lower polyphenol count just by nature. But then there's also Coratina olive, and that tends to have a much higher polyphenol count. But that also affects the flavor and the taste of the olive oil as well. One way or another way to get a higher polyphenol count is to harvest the olive a little bit earlier. So the olives will start green. If you harvest them earlier in the season, you get less oil, but the polyphenol count is much higher.
Okay.
So that's why you might see someone advertise a high polyphenol olive oil. It's much more expensive because they're not getting as much oil from their harvest as they would if they would wait a little bit later in the harvest.
That makes sense.
But also later in the harvest, the polyphenol count kind of drops off. Not a ton, but it does get less. So that's one way to get a higher polyphenol count. But another thing to pay attention to, some companies are marketing their product mainly as medicinal products, where we are trying to create a product that is very well balanced. We want it more for your cooking, for the flavor of your foods. We're trying to produce the highest quality extra virgin olive oil that a Michelin-rated chef would use. And the polyphenols really, because we're doing things in the correct way, everything's fresh, that's a side benefit. Mm-hmm. It's a great benefit, but it is a good side effect of what we're doing.
So a medicinal oil is going to have a polyphenol count of what?
Probably over 700, I would think.
That's going to not taste very good.
Right. So most of the time, the higher the polyphenol count, and also that equates to earlier harvest, it's going to be very bitter.
Okay.
So it's not going to bring the balance that you want in your food.
I have noticed that your oil is probably the only oil I've ever seen, maybe one other, that actually has a harvest date on it.
That's right. That's the most important thing to look for.
Isn't that wild? And no one has that on their bottle.
Yeah, and there's a good reason for that. I think more companies are starting to put the harvest date on their bottles. But when I started this, I wanted to make sure that the American consumer had the same opportunity as someone in a small Italian village would have, if you were to consume extra virgin olive oil locally. So that was my main goal. So that was probably the most important thing, to make sure the harvest date was on the bottle. It's not always easy, but because that means, okay, if I have leftover inventory, they know that this was last year's harvest. And, so I have to be careful how much I bring and how much I can sell to make sure I always have the latest harvest. But when it comes to polyphenols, they do decrease over time. So if you're looking for something healthy and you're in the grocery store and there's no harvest date on the bottle of extra virgin olive oil, you really don't know the level of polyphenols that you're getting unless there is that harvest date. And it's important to always use the most recent harvest. So for example, Northern Hemisphere olive harvest takes place October, November. So today we're making this podcast August 2025. So the most recent harvest is still 2024/25, because sometimes the harvest leads into 2025. So you want to look for the most recent, which is usually in October, November. So today, August 2025, you look for 2024/2025 harvest date.
And the oils in the grocery store or markets or wherever that do not have a harvest date on them, what's your best guess as to how old that oil is? And where has that oil been hanging out?
Right. So you can kind of go down a rabbit hole with this because you don't know for sure, but there's always reasons. And I always tell people, even when you look at the price of olive oil, the price never lies. If there's no harvest date, there's a few different reasons. One is because the oil may be blended from different sources, and these different sources, you don't know how old they are, where they're coming from.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to get into detail on the harvest date. And the other reason is these are big companies. They want to turn a profit. They don't want to waste their product. So if they have a harvest from 2 years ago, don't know what to do with it, they still want to sell it. So,
right.
And there's a market for it here in the United States at most of our grocery stores, where it's not the knowledge isn't there yet.
Right. We don't know. We didn't know this until you told us.
Right. And you'll notice also the price comes down because it's not a premium product anymore. If anyone takes anything away from this podcast, look for the most recent harvest date. And if it doesn't have a harvest date on the bottle, just move on.
Yeah. And then how long is the oil really good for? Because it's still good for a couple of years, isn't it?
Yes. So if it's unopened in the bottle, technically it is good for a few years, but I'm kind of a stickler. I always say, use that oil as quickly as possible. Once it's opened, use it within a few months. If it's not opened, use it within that harvest, within that 1 year of the harvest date.
Okay.
But it's not going to kill you if it's, still in the bottle and it's past the next harvest. It's a function of, we live in a country where olive oil needs to be imported and there's time involved with that. So have to be realistic too.
Now, you had mentioned to me one time when we were talking about this and the fact that, there's usually not a harvest date on anything, and how some of this oil could be stored for a really long time before it's actually bottled. Like, you don't really know. And what kind of container is it being stored in?
So it should be stored in stainless steel vats. Should be with a nitrogen blanket over top to keep any oxygen away from the olive oil. But the bigger companies, especially the ones that do the bottling here in the United States after it's imported, it's usually imported because there's weight involved in shipping in large plastic containers. I also noticed a lot of the olive oil franchises, that's how it's delivered to their stores, in the big plastic containers, and then they fill up the stainless steel containers that you see in the shops.
You're talking about these olive oil specialty shops that you see everywhere.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about.
So okay. The ones that I have seen, I can't speak for all of them. There are distributors that service the shops, and the oil does arrive in the big plastic, like polyethylene container, and then they may store them in the back while they keep their containers full.
Okay. I've also learned from you about cooking red meat in olive oil, or marinating your red meat in olive oil. Talk about that a little bit.
As we learn more and more about the health aspects of the Mediterranean diet, this is just another piece to the puzzle. So you may have heard that red meat is bad for you. I love red meat.
Yeah,
myself.
Me too.
I mean, it's one of the best things. So more recently, we're learning that it's not necessarily the red meat that's causing disease. It is a component that's produced when you overheat or char red meat. The term is heterocyclic amines, or we'll just call them HCA. And HCAs are carcinogenic compounds formed during cooking of meat and fish at high temperatures. They're considered a risk factor for various cancers. There was a study where 2 to 4 grams of extra virgin olive oil was added to the meat before cooking, and it showed a 80% reduction of the formation of these HCAs, which is an insane amount. I mean, it's a significant finding, but just another reason to use extra virgin olive oil in your cooking.
Absolutely. So you're talking marinate the meat in olive oil. You could potentially put other things in there like herbs and things if you wanted to, but that meat needs to be soaking in olive oil or literally cooked in olive oil.
Yes, and it's just one of many benefits of extra virgin olive oil, a fresh extra virgin olive oil that's going to have a good polyphenol count. Mm-hmm. That's one way it's going to protect. Another way, it's been shown that when extra virgin olive oil is used to cook vegetables, the nutrition becomes highly bioavailable after it's cooked in the extra virgin olive oil. So you're actually giving a transport system. You have all this, let's say you have a garden, you have all these fresh vegetables, excited because it's nutritious. Mm-hmm. It boosts the bioavailability of all of those nutrients a very high amount just by using extra virgin olive oil to cook with.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Because why wouldn't you? It actually makes the vegetables taste even better, I think.
I agree, and I always finish my foods with olive oil that hasn't even been heated. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's just another way it's helping in the Mediterranean diet. And then just since I mentioned cooking with extra virgin olive oil, I'll just come right out and say it because it's always a talking point. People say, no, you can't cook with extra virgin olive oil because of the smoke points.
Oh, yeah, the high heat. People have asked me about your oil.
Right.
Yeah.
And smoke point isn't really what we should be looking at. I mean, I think, and this is an approximation, the smoke point is around 410 degrees Fahrenheit. Most of the cooking we do shouldn't reach that temperature.
Okay.
If it does, I'm not sure I want to eat at your restaurant or in your kitchen. But most of the cooking we do doesn't reach that. But also know, and this comes from another study out of Australia, heating of any oils produces, similar to the heterocyclic amines, something we call polar compounds, which has the same negative effect on the body, causes inflammation, chronic disease. So once again, the polyphenols protect against that oxidation. Many oils, almost all other cooking oils, have zero antioxidants. So you're seeing these polar compounds produced, according to this study again, you're seeing these polar compounds produced well before the smoke point. And people are so focused on the smoke point. Mm-hmm. I don't know who started that. But, mm-hmm. So by using extra virgin olive oil, again, you're protecting against the breakdown of those compounds or the production of those polar compounds, which is the main culprit in the inflammation of the body. And then the inflammation of the body, we also know now, is contributing to cognitive decline and things like dementia, Alzheimer's. So there's a whole host of prevention just by simply using a good extra virgin olive oil.
So eat your good olive oil, people. Absolutely. It says a lot when I see a restaurant using your olive oil. It says a lot because it means that they're really paying attention to the details and the quality of foods that they're serving.
Yeah, it's true because it's more expensive. So they're sacrificing something for the greater good. So that just means they care and their attention to detail. But I'll be honest, when I go to a restaurant, I'd like to just try their olive oil. And I'll get a little cup or something, and I'll smell it. And it never smells like anything. It doesn't taste like anything. It's just crazy to me. And these are nice restaurants because olive oil is an afterthought most of the time. Yeah. And then I go home and I use our olive oil, and I'm like, it's like a comfort. You just smell the aroma. You smell the freshness. It smells
so good, and it tastes so good. It's just so different than before knowing you and having experienced this olive oil myself. I was the same way. I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. And I'm buying grocery store olive oil thinking I'm doing something really good for myself, and now I know.
Yeah.
Don't buy grocery store olive oil, especially if it's in a plastic bottle. Just don't do it.
Right. There have been another study on the olive oils now trending that are in the plastic bottles. So the study was done to measure microplastics and phthalates in the oil after it was stored in these bottles.
That's a hot topic right now.
And it was off the charts compared to olive oil stored in glass. That's all I'm going to say on that because I know right now these companies are reacting to the study and the people that are putting it out. There might be a little battle going on there, but I'm just going to stay on the safe side of things and keep the olive oil in either glass bottles or if you're buying in bulk, we have it in our tins.
Yeah. You and I both come from a plastics background way, way back in the day in our 20s, and I even know you don't store things in plastic like that because it leaches. It just does.
Yeah, it does. It does. And people also don't know that plastic is permeable. My background is, as you just mentioned, is chemical engineering, focus in plastics. Plastic is permeable, so it's not protecting 100% against the oxygen like glass would. So that's another aspect. Yeah. It's not keeping it fresh.
Yeah, fascinating. So you've added a few new products to your list of offerings.
Yeah, this is the first year, and this ties in with the Mediterranean diet as well. One of the products we've added is a whole peeled tomato. It's a Roma-style tomato, but it's only in water and a little bit of salt in a glass jar. And I would compare it, say, to, how everybody's hunting for San Marzano tomatoes because they think that this is the best quality tomato available.
And it's low acidic.
Right, low acidic, less seeds, good for sauce, and obviously the main thing is the taste. Our tomato is a similar species, but it's grown in Puglia, and the soil, the lands in Puglia are so fertile and so rich.
Oh, wow.
So I would put this tomato at a higher quality level than the San Marzano tomatoes that come from regions close to Mount Vesuvius, and they receive a lot of marketing, kind of a lot of buzz and trending. But the other issue with San Marzano tomatoes is I never know if I have a true San Marzano, even if it does have the stamp on it. There's just not enough of those tomatoes to go around and fulfill the American market. But anyway, that's one of our new products. It's something that you can eat straight from the jar. There's no acidity on the front end or the back end. It's the best tasting tomato I've ever tasted.
They are delicious, and you just simply make a sauce with that and a little bit of
no ingredients really, just the tomato, a garlic clove, our olive oil, tear up some basil leaf, and you have one of the best tasting pomodoro sauces I've ever had. And back to the health aspect, tomatoes are wonderful because they have lycopene, so it's one of the best things for heart health and for men, prostate health. Now, the funny thing about lycopene or the tomatoes in general, you can't get the lycopene through a fresh tomato. You can't get it unless it's cooked.
You have to have it cooked.
Right. It has to be exposed to heat and cooked. And then to backtrack what I was talking about with the olive oil, now you have an extra benefit to help get the lycopene into your system, because the olive oil acts as a great transport to make things bioavailable. And that's how, all these things just kind of come together in the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah. And then talk about your pasta, because it's unique as well.
Yeah. So the pasta, they're produced by some friends of the family in the Gargano National Park near Vieste. The national park is protected, so the water that they use is pristine. It's organic. They were voted the best organic pasta in Italy in 2024. Wow. But they use a special kind of wheat that a lot of Americans have never heard of. It's called Senatori Capelli wheat. And you see it more in the region of Puglia. If you're walking down the street, the restaurants will have a sign outside that says, we use Senatori Capelli flour, because it's known as the top level flour. But beyond that, it has some special characteristics. It's highly digestible. Most people know there's been issues here in the United States with people eating bread and pasta, and it's bothering their stomachs and digestion. Whether it's the gluten or not, we don't know. I think this particular wheat and flour is just highly digestible. If there's a gluten sensitivity involved, it does have gluten, but it's a less complex gluten structure. Any gluten effect is so low, it's minimal, almost zero. It's very high in protein, high nutritional density. There's a number of different things. Sometimes I forget all the aspects. So I wrote a little blog piece and posted it on our website. And it's not just me kind of parroting this. I link an actual medical study that very specifically uses Senatori Capelli flour pasta and compares it to the average pasta in Italy, which is already very good, better than the standards we have here in the United States. And it's a wide gap of difference between the sensitivity, the digestibility, the nutritional values. And the most amazing part of that to me was we didn't have it in the United States. I couldn't find it here.
Right.
So that was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I brought a few pallets over, and people love it.
Yeah.
People love it, and I hope it grows, and people, they can have a pasta that's finally nutritious for them, doesn't bother them. And then if you combine that with what I mentioned about the tomatoes and the olive oil, it's
You've got a very nutritionally dense meal. Yeah, so that's fantastic.
We've taken something that recently has had a bad connotation. The pasta is not healthy. You eat too much pasta, you don't want that. And what we're offering is something you can eat anytime you want, as much as you want. It's good for you. Yeah. So
it's like almost being in Italy, where the food is so nutritionally dense. You don't get hungry all the time, and it's just so good.
All those stories are true.
Yeah, it's true. It is very true. Tell everybody how to find you. Where can they buy your oil, your pasta, your tomatoes?
Sure. So if you live in the Charlotte, North Carolina area or region, we're in probably about 20 different retailers. And the way to find them is if you go to mariellaandgrace.com. There's a button right on the homepage, Retail Locator. If you don't live near Charlotte, I ship all over the country, so you can just click on Shop Online and order what you want. Now I'll get it to you as quick as I can.
Perfect. Yeah, I've heard that you deliver pretty quickly. You're Johnny on the spot.
Yeah. It's a benefit of being small.
Yeah.
The quality stays high, the service stays high, and hopefully we can maintain that as long as possible.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for being here. This is great information.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on another enriching episode of Soul Wellness with Kristen. We hope the insights shared today have resonated with you, inspiring a deeper connection to your own journey towards holistic well-being. If you enjoyed today's episode, we invite you to subscribe, share, and reach out. Your feedback fuels our mission to bring you meaningful content that educates, empowers, and uplifts. Remember, you are a vital part of this community, and together we're creating a ripple effect of positive change.